welcome to this video. Today I'm going to give you a tour of my new Google Sheets monthly budget spreadsheet. This is the third version that I create and it's a completely new layout. So in this video I'm going to show you what the template looks like when you first receive it, how it works, all the features that are included, and I'm going to walk you through an example of how you fill it out. So if you already have the template, it's a good idea to follow along while you're filling out your own version. And if you don't have the template, you can find the link to purchase it in the description, but you can also just watch this video to get inspired and create your own spreadsheets. So let's get into it. So the first thing you're going to do when you receive your template is you're going to jump to the initial setup tab and you're going to scroll to the right and follow each of these steps. So for the first step, if you're working in English, you can leave it as it is. And if you're going to work on a different language, you can replace the month labels with your own translation in this column over here. And then if you scroll to the right, you're going to find the second step. So this is the most important step. This is where you're going to customize the categories that you're going to use throughout your template. So as you can see, there's 6 sections included. There's income, savings, debt, bills, subscriptions, and variable expenses. These are the same sections that you'll find on your monthly budget spreadsheet tab. So if you jump into that tab and you scroll down, you're going to find those same sections. And as you can see, each section includes different category dropdowns that are going to get filled automatically with the elements that you add in here. And I added a few examples by default. You can take a look at them, use them as inspiration, and when you're ready to add your own, you can simply select them, delete them, and then create your own list and your dropdowns will update automatically. Now, if you scroll to the right, you're going to find a section where you can create a list of your payment methods. So this is optional. Whenever you pay for something, you can assign a payment method to that transaction. So the elements that you add here are going to be used to create this payment method dropdowns. And finally, you're going to follow the instructions on step 4 to customize your time zone and make sure that dates update properly based on where you are in the world. So these 4 steps are enough to get started with the template. If you keep scrolling, you're going to find several other optional steps. You can skip this for now, get familiar with how the template works, and then come back here if you want to change the theme colors so that the template is not pink. You can also change your progress bar colors. I'll talk about what those progress bars are later in the video. And then if there's a label throughout the template that you don't like the way it's called, or if you're working on a different language, you can update those labels using this your translation column, and then they will be replaced automatically all throughout the template. So as I mentioned, you can skip the optional steps for now and come back here later. And once you're done with the initial setup, we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into the monthly budget spreadsheet tab. So this is what the template is going to look like blank. And the most important thing that you need to remember is that you should only edit cells that have a white background. So anything that has a colored background is automated and you should not edit it manually. It's going to update by itself. So you can see very clearly which are the cells that you're supposed to edit. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to set the month and the year that you're going to be working with. So you're going to select a month from the drop down and then you're going to set a year. And the template will work with any month, any year. You'll notice that the days left in the month will update automatically over here. And then if you're going to be using a different currency symbol, you can delete this one, replace it with your own, and you're going to notice that the labels for all money related columns get updated automatically. So the way this template works is you're going to start every month by creating a budget, and then you're going to add transactions to track what really happened. And I added a cool feature so you could easily see which are the cells that you're supposed to edit depending on whether you're budgeting or you're adding actual amounts. So if you're budgeting, you can check this box and you're going to notice that the headers for different columns get highlighted automatically in a different color. So the cells below those headers are the ones that you're supposed to edit. And then if I uncheck this box and I check the adding actual amounts checkbox, you're going to notice a different set of headers gets highlighted automatically. And super important, each of these 6 sections can have as many rows as you need. You insert new rows by selecting one or more rows found anywhere in the middle of the table without ever touching the first row or the last row of each section. And then you're going to right click and insert 8 rows below. So you're going to be able to insert the same number of rows that you selected, and you can repeat this step as many times as you need. This is going to work on any section, even if there's already information in it. So for example, over here, if I needed more space, I can select one or more rows from the middle of this section, right click, insert 5 rows below. So the template is dynamic and each section can have as much space as you need. So let's start filling out the template by creating a budget for the month. I'm gonna uncheck this box and I'm gonna check the budgeting checkbox so I can highlight the cells that we should be focusing on. So adding a starting balance is optional. If you're expecting to have money left from previous months and you want that to be available this month, you can add that amount over here. This is completely optional. If you want to start fresh, you can just leave this empty. So I'm gonna leave it empty for now. And then you're gonna scroll down and you're gonna find the income section. This is where you're going to add the amounts that you expect to receive each month from each of your income sources. So all you have to do is select one of the categories that you created during the initial setup and then add your expected amount. So once you're done with the income section, you're gonna scroll down and you're gonna make a plan for the amount of money that you're gonna put aside for each of your savings categories. So again, you select one of your categories and you add your expected amount. And if you scroll back to the top, you're gonna notice that this summary is being updated automatically with all the information that you add. So you have your total expected income and then how much you plan to put aside for savings. And over here, you can see your expected amount left. So this is how much you have available to budget for the rest of your expenses this month. Now I'm gonna scroll down and I'm gonna find my debt, bills, and subscription sections. So these three sections work completely different from the income and savings. As you can see, the cells that are highlighted that you're supposed to edit are found on the table on the right, and then the table on the left has colored backgrounds. That means this is automated and you should not edit this manually. So the way you're going to create your budget on each of these three sections is by adding your expected transactions beforehand. So these are going to be your fixed expenses, the things that you're already committed to and that have a specific day in which they're supposed to be paid this month. So let's do an example on the bills section. Let's add our expected rent payment. So let's say you pay that on the 15th. I'm going to add the number 15. As you can see, I'm not adding the month or the year. That's not necessary when you're adding transactions because the entire tab belongs to the same month and the same year. So all you have to do is add the due date as one number. And you're going to notice that the full date gets created automatically on the last column of the table in case you want to take a look at that. So you're going to set the day in which this transaction is due. You're going to select your category and you're going to add the amount due. And then everything else is optional. You can add a description if you want. You can select one of your payment methods beforehand if you already know what your payment method is going to be. And you can also add one custom tag. Super important, you can add a single tag to each of your transactions. And the tag is going to be useful for your automated summaries. I'll show you an example. You're going to be able to see a breakdown of the tags that you used on all of your transactions. So that's completely optional, but that's what that is going to be useful for. So with every new transaction that you add, this table on the left is going to update automatically. You should never ever edit this table manually. So as you can see, we have our rent category and then the expected amount. If you add several transactions to the same category, they're going to be added up in a single expected amount for that category. So I'm going to add a couple of utilities so you can see what that would look like. So I added 3 different transactions with the category utilities, and you're going to notice that the amount due for each one is added up over here automatically for the utilities category. Now the cool part about these 3 sections is that you can add your transactions beforehand and they won't be considered in your actual totals until you use this checkbox to mark them as paid. So I'm going to go ahead and check the box for rent, and you're going to notice that immediately that amount is now being considered in my actual totals. So if I check every single box to mark each of these transactions as paid, you're going to notice that now my expected and actual amounts match. So I'm going to uncheck these boxes for now, so we only have expected amounts, and I'm going to add a few transactions to my debt section and my subscription sections as well, so we can have some information for the example. So I added a couple of planned debt payments, some subscriptions, and with every new transaction that you add, the corresponding table on the left is going to update automatically. And I want to take a moment to explain why I decided to keep bills and subscriptions as separate sections. There are so many things that we can subscribe to now, and a lot of them individually, they don't look like much, but they quietly add up. And then if you have them mixed in with your normal adult life bills, it's very easy not to notice them and not to notice the impact that they're having on your finances. So I really wanted subscriptions to be its own section so you could be very aware of your monthly total and be very intentional about the things that you want to keep that are actually useful to you and your life and your goals, and the things that are just a waste of money. So I really hope you find this helpful. So once you're done with your planned expenses, you're going to scroll down and you're going to finish by creating a budget for your variable expenses. So this section works exactly the same as the income and savings section. All you're going to do is select one of your categories from the drop-down, and then you're going to add your budget for this category this month. And a quick tip about drop-downs, you can either click on the arrow and find your item, or you can actually start typing and the list will be filtered so you can find and select your item more easily. So I select a category, I add my expected amount, and once you're done creating your budget for this month's variable expenses, you can scroll back up, take a look at your summary, and see your updated totals for each section and your updated expected amount left. So you can take a look at this number, decide if you want to make any changes anywhere in your budget, and you'll also notice that the summary includes an additional total expenses row. This number over here is adding up your bills, subscriptions, and variable expenses. So the result of these three totals added up is what you're going to be seeing in this total expenses row. And the total amount left is going to be the result of your starting balance plus your income minus savings minus debt minus total expenses. So as I mentioned, you're going to create your budget at the beginning of the month, and then throughout the month, you're going to track what really happened. So I'm going to uncheck this budgeting checkbox, and I'm going to check the adding actual amounts box to highlight the cells that we should be focusing on when you're adding your real transactions. So whenever you receive money, you're going to add an income transaction over here. You're going to set the day in which you received it. You're going to add your income source, and then you're going to add your amount. And you're going to notice that immediately this amount is added up in the corresponding category in this actual column over here. So you should never edit this section manually. It has a colored background. This will update with every transaction that you add. If you add more than one transaction to the same category, it's going to be added up automatically in this actual column over here. And you're going to be able to see the difference between your expected amount and your current actual amount in this column right here. This is going to happen automatically. And super important, whenever you're adding a transaction, you need to make sure that the category that you're using already exists on this list. If it doesn't exist, you should add it even with an expected amount of 0, just to make sure that when you're adding a transaction, this amount has somewhere to go. And then if you want to put money aside for your savings, you can scroll down and add a savings transaction. Same thing, you add the day, you select one of your categories and you add your amount. The actual amount gets updated automatically and the difference is also updated automatically. If you add more than one transaction to the same category, you're going to see the total amount added up over here, and then the difference between your expected and actual amounts will also update automatically. So both of these sections work exactly the same way. The category needs to exist in this table before you can use it in this table over here. And remember, you don't need to include the month and the year. You can just add the day as one number and the full date will update automatically at the end of the table. Now, whenever you have an expense, there are two scenarios. You can either be paying for one of the transactions that you planned beforehand in your debt, bills, and subscriptions section, or it can be a variable expense. So whenever you pay for any of the transactions that you added beforehand, all you're going to do is use this checkbox over here to mark them as paid. And you're going to notice that as you're checking your boxes, the actual amount is updating automatically and the difference is also updating automatically. So if I check every single box, my expected amount and my actual amount are going to match and my difference is going to be 0. Now, there are some cases in which the amount that you were expecting to pay isn't what you actually paid. When that happens, you're going to scroll to the right and you're going to find these amount paid cells. So if you want to add an amount paid that's different from your amount due, all you have to do is set it in this cell over here. And you're going to notice that this amount paid updates automatically. So initially this column is going to be empty and it's going to get filled automatically when you check the box to mark this transaction as paid, and the amount that's going to be used as the amount paid is your amount due. So if you want to overwrite that, you can use this cell, and you'll also see that the difference between your amount due and your amount paid will be updated automatically in this column. So the debt, bills, and subscriptions sections, they all work exactly the same way. And then for the rest of your unplanned transactions, you're going to use the variable expenses section. So whenever you pay for something, you're going to add that transaction over here. You start by adding the day, you select your category, and then you add your amount. And as soon as you do that, the actual amount will update automatically over here in the corresponding category. If you add more than one transaction to the same category, that's going to be added up automatically. Again, you're going to see the difference automatically. So this works pretty much the same way as the income and savings section. And if you add a transaction to a category, you need to make sure that this category also exists in this table over here, even with an expected amount of of 0, just to make sure that these amounts have somewhere to go to be added up in this actual column. And then for each of your transactions, you can add an optional description. So this could be the grocery store, for example. You can also select one of your payment methods, and you can also add a custom tag. Super important, each of your transactions can have a single custom tag. And then this check mark over here will appear automatically for each of your transactions. It's just a reference to remind you that whatever you add here will be automatically considered as paid. And then whatever you add on your subscriptions, bills, and debt sections, those transactions will only be considered as paid if you check the corresponding box. So this is just a visual reference, a reminder, and you should never edit this column directly. Now, as you're adding transactions, you're going to notice that different summaries will update automatically. So I'm going to show you an example that's already filled out a bit more so you can see what that would look like. Now, big disclaimer, I added a lot of cool summaries, but you don't have to use them all. I'm going to walk you through each of them and you can decide which are the ones that are helpful to you and you can ignore the rest. So your simplest summary is going to be found up here. This is your total actual amount for each of these sections. As I mentioned before, the total expenses is grouping your bills, subscriptions, and variable expenses. Debt gets its own section. So if you want to see a breakdown of where this number is coming from, you can scroll to the right and you'll see the total for bills, subscriptions, and variable expenses and the percentage that each of these represents out of your total expenses. You'll also see this graph over here that's displaying your actual allocations. So basically this is where your money is going, and you can either see bills, subscriptions, and variable expenses as 3 separate sections, or you can uncheck this box and you'll see the whole thing as total expenses. So you can check and uncheck this box dynamically as often as you like. And then this entire section is a comparison between your plan and what really happened. So you can see the difference between your actual amounts and your expected amounts for each section over here. This is a visual representation of your progress. A full bar means your actual amount matched or exceeded your expected amount, and each of these bars will be color coded automatically depending on whether you reached your goals or not. So for example, if we take a look at income, we made more money than we expected, so that bar will automatically turn green. And then if you take a look at your expenses, we spent more money than we expected. That can be considered a bad thing, so this bar will automatically turn red. So if the month is still ongoing and one of your sections hasn't reached the expected amount, those bars will be gray. And then once the month ends, every single bar will either turn green or red to display your final result. And as I mentioned before, adding a starting balance is optional. If you uncheck this box, you'll notice that it disappears from the summary, so it will no longer be included in the amount left calculation. You'll see an updated amount left. You'll also see that this section is now only showing your income. This is the money that you have available this month. So you can check and uncheck this box dynamically whenever you need. Now, if you scroll down here, you're going to find 2 additional graphs. The first one is a very cool graph that's going to display your daily summary. So this is going to be a comparison between the money that you receive and the money that you spend every single day of the month. So you can see the days of the month as just numbers, or you can also include the weekday. And money out is going to include every single paid transaction from your debt, bills, subscriptions, and variable expenses. You can also choose to only display the money out by switching your drop-down selections. You can switch this whenever you like. This gray area, that's your income. And if at any point you see a warning sign at the beginning, that means there are transactions that don't have a specific date assigned. So if you assign a date to those transactions, then that warning will disappear. And this table includes everything except for your savings, because your savings remained with you. So this is a money in, money out comparison. If you want to see your savings allocation breakdown, you can take a look at this graph over here and you'll see the percentage that you have allocated to each of your savings categories. And then if you scroll to the right, you're going to find this upcoming payments summary. So any transaction that you add in your debt, bills, and subscriptions sections that have not been marked as paid will automatically appear on this list. It'll be sorted automatically by date with the closest ones at the top. If anything's overdue, it'll be automatically highlighted in red. So you can always come back to this list to make sure that you're on top of your upcoming payments. And then I also added a small calculation over here. So this is the amount that you would have left if you paid all of your pending transactions today. So basically, that's just your current amount left minus your pending transactions, and this is how much you you would have left if you paid that today. Now, if you scroll to the right, you're going to find your expected versus actual summary. This is initially blank. You have to select a section from this dropdown and then the summary will be displayed. So you can compare your expected and actual amounts for every category found in this section. You'll see the percentage that each of these categories represent out of the total actual for the selected section. And then you'll see the same information in this graph over here. So you'll find your 6 sections listed in this dropdown. And then I also added 2 additional summaries. One that's meant for your total expenses. As you may recall, your total expenses are grouping your bills, subscriptions, and variable expenses. So if you want to see them all together, see the breakdown all together, see your totals for those 3 sections all together, you can select total expenses. And then if you want to see your entire money out breakdown, you can select total expenses plus debt. So this would be the total amount of money that has left you this month. And you can also use this drop down over here to sort your table using a different column. So you can change your selections whenever you want and the summary will always update automatically. Now, if you scroll to the right, you're going to find a section that includes a list with every single one of your paid transactions from your debt, bills, subscriptions, and variable expenses sections. So whenever you're adding transactions, you're going to add them in their corresponding section, and then this table will join them all together in a single list that's going to be initially sorted by date. You can also use a different column to sort the table. You can sort it by section, you can sort it by category, and then if you scroll to the right, you're going to find a breakdown of the payment methods that you used for these transactions. You also see a breakdown of the custom tags that you assigned to each of these transactions. And the coolest part about this summary is that you can filter it by section. So for example, I can select the subscriptions section, and then you'll see that the payment method summary and the custom tag updated to display the breakdown for these specific transactions. And then you can filter the list even more by selecting a specific category. So I could select entertainment, for example, and then I'll only see the transactions from my subscriptions section that are assigned to the entertainment category. So you can change these filters dynamically. If you want to remove a filter, all you have to do is select it and press delete on your keyboard. So right now I'm only filtering by category. I'm seeing all of the transactions that I assigned to the entertainment category, and then I can see the sections where these transactions are coming from. So this is useful if you want to see all of your money out transactions in a single list that can be sorted and filtered. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of summaries included, but you don't have to use them all. You can just use the ones that are useful to you and ignore the rest. Now, this is a monthly template, and it's very important that when the month is over, you do not try to change the dates over here. If you do, the dates will change, but all the information that you added will remain where it is. The proper way to start over on a new month is to create a new blank copy from your blank original. So this tab over here that has a little lock in it, that's your blank original, and you should never edit this directly. You should only use it to create new copies, and you do that by right-clicking on the tab name and selecting the option duplicate. So this is going to create a copy right next to the blank original. You can double click on the tab name to add a new name, and then you can go ahead, set your new month, set your year, and you can start fresh on this new month. So that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me and I will be happy to answer them. I'm going to leave my email in the description, and I'm also going to leave the link to purchase the template in the description. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.